Hello, everyone. It's your girl, Dr. Letitia, and we are back with another episode of my web show, Coffee and Conversations. Today's guest is someone I am thrilled to speak to and to introduce you to because she is doing major things in the field of mental health. Marline Francois-Madden is the CEO of Hearts Empowerment Counseling Center, best-selling author of The State of Black Girls, licensed therapist, speaker, and entrepreneur. She has over 15 years of experience in the mental health field and has become a sought-after expert in mental health, self-care, and girls' leadership. Marline has shared her expertise at dozens of universities, colleges, community organizations, churches, and conferences. Mindfully intersecting the connection between Black girls in policy and mental health, Marline is a pivotal force who makes it her mission to create equity in Black mental health with the astute awareness that equity and equality are not the same things. Marline holds a bachelor's degree in psychology from Penn State University, as well as a master's of social work from Rutgers University North. She is currently pursuing her PhD at Montclair State University. Her work has been featured in Forbes, Essence, Madame Noir, CBS, Business Insider, Therapy for Black Girls, and dozens of media platforms. Please join me in welcoming Marline Francois-Madden to Coffee and Conversations.
Hi.
Hi, Marline. How are you? How are you? How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm great. So great to see you. And I am so grateful that you are able to join us for Coffee and Conversations today.
Yes, I'm glad I'm here today.
So I already know you. I already know about the dynamic work that you do. Let's start the conversation by you telling us a bit about what drew you to the human services profession.
So, ever since I was 5, I knew I wanted to go into this field. My mom used to work for a clinical psychologist. And I just
Okay.
remember saying to her, I want to be a doctor just like Mrs. Stafford. I had no idea what type of doctor she was. I just knew I wanted to be like this woman. And
Okay.
then as time went by, as the years went on, I decided, okay, it's going to be psychology. And at the age of 13, my dad would give me these books. It was on Freud. And our neighbor was having a flea market. So he got the books from him and said, I know you're interested in psychology. Here you go. Start reading the books. And I started reading the books and I'm like, wow, this is very interesting. And
Mhm.
I just think from at a young age, I just knew I'm going to go into the helping profession to help people. So it was between that and also just being a survivor of child sexual trauma. And
Okay.
for me, my outlet at that time was reading magazines like Teen Vogue, 17, because they always
Mhm.
had this Ask an Expert section. And in that section, they were girls who were sharing their stories about, oh, I got a crush on this guy, or I just went through my first heartbreak, or I've
Mhm.
experienced, sexual trauma. Like, what do I do? And so I would read those stories, and that was my connection to getting the help that I didn't know I needed at the time. And
Mhm.
so from there, it was like, I want to be that person at some point that's helping young girls. So that was part of what made me go into this profession.
Okay. And when I think about your specializations, right? So I have gifted your book to every young Black girl in my
Thank
life, right?
you.
Absolutely, because it's so awesome and it's so dynamic. Tell me about what influenced you to write a book about the state of Black girls.
Yeah. So I would say I started when I got into the profession, I would go into Barnes and Noble, go on Amazon and look up books for adolescents. So as professionals, as therapists, we're always looking for books, on anxiety, depression, self-harm, self-esteem. And every time I would see these books, I never saw a Black girl on the cover. It was
Mhm.
always white
Yep.
girls, white woman. And for me, I'm like, if I were a Black girl and I walked into a store, I would not pick up that book because I don't see myself represented in those books. So for me, it was that. And it was also just speaking to young girls and hearing their stories. And I'm like, the way depression shows up in us won't look the same. Some
That's
of our
right.
challenges don't look the same. So we face colorism, some concerns about our hair, us being policed in the community, us being adultified in the community, the school to prison pipeline. So I thought about all of those concepts that girls are constantly going through. And I'm like, I need to write a book specifically for them where they can see themselves and feel like, okay, someone hears me, someone values me, but also giving them tangible tips and tools to help them succeed too.
Okay, absolutely. And one thing I love what you said is about representation, right? And one thing I tell people in this field all the time is I certainly do not believe that, you can only be helped by a clinician or by a therapist that looks like you. I don't believe that that's true. However, I think that there is something to be said about being able to see yourself even in the therapeutic process, right? If I'm speaking to a client and I'm like, that really snatched edges, they know what that means, right? I don't have to get out the Urban Dictionary. They don't have to ask me what it means. And I think it's so important that we really continue to elevate that. And I feel you're doing that because you have an entirely female Black staff. Tell me about what went into your decision to do that. Why was that important to you?
Yeah, because so statistics show that only 4% of therapists are Black to begin with. So that's one. And then the second thing was we see that, the way we experience psychological stressors just don't look the same. So I
Mhm.
think for me, what came into my decision was the fact that oftentimes when people called and if I couldn't service them, their first question was, I don't want this to sound offensive, but can you refer me to an African American therapist?
I've
So
heard that so many
yeah, and
times.
I'm like,
Yes.
girl, you need a Black therapist. I got you. And they're like, oh, you say that? Yes, you can say that. So they felt
Mhm.
ashamed saying the fact that I want to see a Black provider. Like, I don't want to have to explain why, my stresses are being the only Black woman in tech and how am I going to wear my hair to an interview? They didn't
That's
want to
right.
have to explain that to someone. They're like, I want to show up to therapy in my bonnet with no issue and you're not going to judge me.
That's
So
right.
they just had certain challenges that they're like, I want someone who understands this. And for me, I recognize that a lot of the clients that I was serving at the time were predominantly Black women and girls. And I just thought about some of their challenges that they were experiencing, even adolescent girls. A lot of Black girls that were coming in who went to schools in predominantly white spaces that struggled with their identity and who they were and how do they show up and don't code switch. So for me, it was like they need representation. That is why they came here to begin with, because they saw the picture of someone who looks like them. So for me, it's like I need to provide that for them, because if you're going into a work environment and you can't show up as your true authentic self, what's the point of going to therapy if you don't have that representation or have
Yes.
someone who's culturally sensitive? Because you could
Yes.
have someone who doesn't identify as the same race as you and can be culturally sensitive. But for me, it's like I wanted them to have that access, especially when the statistics are showing that we rarely have, therapists who look like us. We rarely have representation. And it was like, if we don't have representation, why am I not hiring the representation to close this gap for us?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I want to know, Marlene, because I read your bio and I have followed your work and know your work, and you do a lot of speaking, and your platform is wellness for Black women and Black girls, right? And so
Yes.
now we are living in a space where there are states that are arresting teachers if they teach critical race theory. There are states where, they are literally abolishing any talks that are specific to the issues faced by, Black and brown women. Have you received any pushback professionally because of your platform and your dedication to that particular population?
I haven't yet. And I know one of the things that's been happening lately is that they're also banning books. And
Yes.
so I it's funny because I was watching people talk about, wow, they're banning books, critical race theory is not allowed in schools. And for me, what I do, I try to go into schools where they're serving predominantly Black children and
Got you.
you. So then if I'm saying, hey, I want to come in and do a workshop on stress management, you just think I'm doing a workshop on stress management. But then my
Hmm.
PowerPoint slides, what pictures you think I'm using? I'm
That's
using a
right.
Black girl who got purple braids. I'm using another Black youth who has an afro. So
Mhm.
I'm because we're not monoloth. We have different
That's right.
styles. So, whether your hair is straight, curly, you got locks in your hair, I'm showing a variety of pictures and images that represents them. And in the language that I'm using, it's representing them. The pop culture that I'm bringing in is representing them. And so by me doing that, it allows me that flexibility, because I'm not saying, hey, this is a, Black affirmed workshop. It's just that when they watch it, they're like, okay, I see myself in this. So I haven't received any pushback yet. I actually had a school
Great.
last week that's ordering a bulk order for their kids, but the school is
Yay.
predominantly Black.
Hmm.
And I'm connected with the administrators and superintendents who are Black too. So then
Exactly.
they see the need and they're like, okay, we need this in our school. So yes, come into the school and do these workshops, provide the books for their kids. But I'm going to get that pushback in some areas because I've had a school before ask me, I know your book is called The State of Black Girls, but what about the Latinx girls? Or like I've done a workshop in a school before and they're like, your workshop was great, but we got like 2 or 3 girls here that are Caucasian. You think you want to like do something for them too? I'm like,
And
okay.
what did you respond, Marlene? Because I can only imagine.
Well, the coping skills on my workshop is applicable to all races.
Yeah, exactly.
The
And
content is
that's
applicable to all races. It's just that the
exactly.
images I use look like our community and people find that offensive. Yet if you walk into a store, you walk into ShopRite, who are on the covers? We don't see
Exactly.
ourselves on the covers, but it
Exactly.
becomes a norm for us to conform to whiteness. But yet the minute we show a little bit of our identity, it makes people uncomfortable.
Exactly. And it's so interesting because even television, I think, does the same thing, right? The Black people on television are all racially ambiguous, right?
Yeah.
And more safe, and like you said, we are not monolithic. And it is so important that all of us are represented, and you do that in such an amazing way. Last question for you, Marlene, because I think this is really something that the viewers will really want to know. What information or what advice would you give to Black mothers raising Black adolescents during COVID-19? What strategies do you feel they should focus in on the most in order to stay connected to their daughters?
I would say really get to know your teen. So really look out for the signs. So are they eating? How is their sleeping habits? Are they feeling isolated? Do you notice any physical or psychological changes in your adolescent? Because if you do, you need to pay close attention to that and really, really create an environment where they can come and talk to you. So, we hear this new language of positive parenting,
Yeah,
conscious parenting that everyone is using, but like really creating that environment where like you can allow them to talk to you about anything where there's no judgment and you're able to just affirm them in that moment, because it is a tough time for a lot of adolescents, especially with this pandemic. We've seen an increase in depression, anxiety,
yes,
and even
absolutely.
suicide rates or attempts. You see an increase in that. So I think it's very important for mothers to be mindful of that, but also too, I think it's important for, I know in our community there's this, the whole strong Black woman, superwoman cape.
Mhm.
I think mothers are going to have to be very intentional with how they display that and
Yes,
showing their children that they can have some ease, some comfort, some joy. It's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to take a break. It's okay to rest. So I think we're going to have to model some of that rest and joy, because if not, then you have an adolescent who feels like they have to do everything. They have to be involved in every activity, and then now they're on the break of burnout, and they're not even 18 years old.
absolutely. Absolutely. Marlene, I cannot thank you enough for
Thank
joining
you.
Coffee and Conversations. You already know I'm going to have you come back, right? You know you
Yeah.
have to come do a part two. You know that because I think that it is so important for the audience to be able to glean from your wisdom and glean from your experiences. And I know you're busy because you are finishing up that PhD. When are you finishing?
2024.
Oh, it's gonna be here
Long way to go.
before you know it. It's
Yes.
almost here. It's almost here. It's almost here. So I just want to thank you. I honor you. I honor the work you do. I admire you. Marlene is also the creator of the planner for therapists. So tell them, Marlene, where they can purchase that planner. I get my planner every year, and it is just so dope. So tell them where they can get the planner
Yeah.
and when they can get the book and where they can find you.
Yes. So you can find the planner on therapistplanner.com. And as far as the book, The State of Black Girls, it's available on Amazon, or you can order bulk copies on my website, www.marlinefrancois.com.
Awesome. And if are you and your team accepting new clients?
Yes, we are. We're accepting new clients, and we have openings on the weekends, evening, daytime appointments too. So we have openings available for New Jersey clients.
Awesome. Thank you so, so, so much. And I can't wait to see you again, both professionally and personally. Continue
Yeah,
to do the amazing work that you do, Marline. You are a
thank you,
shining
thank
star.
you, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Take care.